Win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash. Text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
For decades, Britain has been dealing with immigration, but for one part of the UK, it is a relatively new experience. GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie has this report.
At the end of April 2023, Ireland's immigration was up by 31%. And over a decade, Northern Ireland's has doubled, with South Belfast being the most diverse. Tracy Kelly is a DUP Belfast City Councillor who deals with the issues in this area on a daily basis.
We have working class communities like Sandy Row, like the Donegal Pass, who are blending in with others who are coming here to work and live and mix. But there is also an issue when there's too many people who can't get housed. That seems to be the main issue that I deal with. When people in their own community who've been born and reared here have to move away because there's a lack of housing.
Takura Makoni represents the African community of Northern Ireland.
I would presume mostly 99% of asylum seekers or migrants and refugees coming to this part of the world would have very little knowledge about the internal dynamics in Northern Ireland. So you find out it's almost like you're thrown in the deep water. To have the cognizance to say, here, I need to pick up that I'm living on a peace line and these guys don't like those guys and maybe these guys can tolerate me and those ones won't. You don't have any idea of that. It'll take you up to 10 years to get a real sense of that because, remember, you're focused on trying to rebuild your life.
To avoid further tensions, should government be looking at the placement of those refugees and migrants?
Join me, Camila, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tomy Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good evening from the GB Newsroom at 11 o'clock. Your top story this hour. Diane Abbott, the MP at the centre of a growing racism row, has accused both the Conservatives and Labour of failing to deal with racism. Writing in The Independent, the former Labour MP said Tories' reluctance to call out racism and sexism is hardly surprising, but she said she was disappointed in the Labour Party for being equally reluctant. It's after the Conservatives' biggest donor, Frank Hester, allegedly said that the former Labour MP made him want to hate all black women and that she should be shot. Mr Hester says he's deeply sorry for the remarks. The First Minister of Wales has criticised Boris Johnson's leadership during the COVID pandemic. Mark Drakeford said the former Prime Minister was like the absent manager of a football team and accused him of not taking the pandemic seriously. Speaking at the COVID inquiry, he also said Mr Johnson was deliberately unclear as to whether some rules only applied to England. The Welsh Conservatives accused Mr Drakeford of using the inquiry to attack his political opponents and called for a Wales-specific inquiry. An aristocrat accused of neglecting her newborn baby, leading to her death, has defended her decision to house the child in a tent. Constance Martin, who's 36, went on the run with her partner, 49-year-old Mark Gordon, in an attempt to keep their newborn baby. Miss Martin justified keeping her child outdoors in wintry conditions, telling the court that Jesus survived in a barn. She also said she didn't agree with the medical warnings against keeping babies outside, saying that lots of children live without heating. Baby Victoria's remains were found in a supermarket bag near Brighton in March of last year. Miss Martin and Mr Gordon deny charges of manslaughter. The case is continuing. And TikTok could be banned in the US unless the app's Chinese owners sell its American operation. The House of Representatives voted to pass a bill that would require the social media company to be sold or blocked with an overwhelming majority. The bill still needs to pass the Senate to become law. Here in the UK, TikTok hasn't been banned before, but it was blocked from government devices in 2023 over data privacy concerns. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle and I've got a whole load of interesting stories from tomorrow's newspapers. I've also got two fantastic comedians, Steve N. Allen and Scott Caporo. And how are you both? Scott, you were performing at my comedy club last night. You did very well.
You squeezed me in and I did 5 minutes.
You did. That's exactly. You made that sound filthy. But you did do very, very well.
Oh,
no
thank you.
Walkouts, though. You didn't offend anyone.
I know. I've lost it, clearly. And you didn't fire me.
No, I know.
Ridiculous.
So not the way you wanted it to go. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, I had a night in. Less dramatic, but because I've got the 6-year-old kid, 6-week-old kid.
Yes.
New. The 6-year-old will be a lot older, so it's still crying.
Well, congratulations. That's very exciting.
Well, thank you. I do cry very well.
When they cry, might I suggest some Michael Jackson videos? That usually calms them down.
OK, well, let's crack on by having a look at the front covers. So we're going to start with Thursday's Daily Mail, and they're running with Shap's backs, spending 3% on our defence. Telegraph has Gove to identify Muslim groups as extremists. The Guardian, Diane Abbott is accusing the Tories of playing the race card as the Hester row intensifies. If you want to know what that is, stick around. We're going to be talking about that. The Express, migrant flight plans to Rwanda in good place. And the Eye, Tory reliance on race row, major donor revealed. And the Daily Star, they're making a new Titanic. What could possibly go wrong? Those are your front pages. Right, we're going to begin with Thursday's Guardian. Steve has got the details.
It's the story that keeps on giving. They go with Abbott accuses Tories of playing race card as Hester row intensifies. So she accuses the Conservatives of playing the race card on the way into the general election. This is effectively saying stoking the culture war because that will in some way help them. But this story is just amazing. There are so many layers.
Well, who's Hester for a start?
Hester is the person who said Diane Abbott is so bad she makes you hate all black women.
This is Frank Hester, who's a donor to the Tory party.
A major donor. 21% of their budget comes from him.
Right.
£10 million. But don't worry, because he owns a company that's received hundreds of millions of pounds worth of contracts from the NHS. So it's a little cycle.
Yeah.
So our money goes to the NHS, that then goes to him. He gives $1 million of it to the Tories.
1% back.
That makes sure that they stay in charge so they can keep this cycle going.
Well, with all of this kind of stuff, I'm always slightly hesitant because I know that things can be taken out of context. I know that things are sometimes said in jest and it's misreported.
Is that how you defend yourself?
That is how I defend myself, and it works very well up to now. But reading the full quotation, this looks bad. This looks indefensible.
It sounds terrible when you read it out loud on a crowded bus, too.
Did you try to do that?
Just on the way here.
Scott, come on. What would you... In this situation, so the Tories have had 10 million from this guy, and then they've said they would take another 10 million if he offered it.
Yeah.
At what point do you say, actually, the money isn't worth it if someone's going to say this kind of vile thing?
Well, it's so much a part of their budget, and they skate on such thin ice financially that they really need his help. And they're coming close to an election, so of course they'll take whatever funding they can get.
There must be the case.
It's when he said that she should be shot that I was so shocked. That really took me aback. Of course there's racism, and it's horrible. But because 2 MPs have died, it's like, why is he saying this now?
Yeah, it just feels wrong. But, the thing is, Steve, there must be all sorts of situations where political donors to political parties are not exactly morally pure.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure we get that across the board. And at what point do people say they need to pass this test before we take the money? Is it possible, is what I'm asking, on an ethical level, to separate this kind of thing from the receiving the money?
Not when it's 10 million. I think if it were less, then they'd be like, they don't want this association, but 10 million's a bit much. This is why Rishi doesn't want to open the floodgates on this, because if they go, OK, we'll give back the 10 million, then all the journalists are going to do for the next fortnight is look at who gives a lot of money and things they've said before and then go, what about this?
And I promise you they'll find stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
And a lot of celebrities give money that we don't even know about anonymously. And in the US, they give a lot of money. Writers, directors, actors that people don't want to be involved with anymore. It's how they keep their power.
Yeah.
Is their finance.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, well, we're going to move on to the front of Thursday's Daily Mail. Scott, they are leading with a different story.
Shap's back spending 3% on our defence. The minister's called for a cash boost for a more dangerous world. Really, he used Vladimir Putin as an example, saying they need a bigger budget. You need a bigger budget to defend yourself from Vladimir Putin.
Yes, because our military has been shrinking and our navy has been shrinking.
A lot of people...
And it said that we need to have a stronger defence than we currently have.
I wonder who to defend yourself from, though, because Poland's... they spend 4% of their GDP. Scandinavian countries, Sweden spends a lot. Finland spends a lot. They have quite a large air force, 38,000 air force. They are. But that's why... But this is why Putin wants to invade that border with Finland. He wants the property, but he also is terrified of Finland's military. He knows how powerful they are. That's why he didn't want Finland to join NATO. He tried to stop it.
Yes.
And he tried to stop Sweden as well. But I think that the more you build your military, it may not discourage Putin. It may have the opposite effect. Israel spends 4.5% of their GDP on their military, and Saudi Arabia 8.5%.
But I mean, our military has been in the news recently. They're desperate to recruit. They're talking about not having, rigorous security checks for foreign nationals if they want to join because we've got to inflate the numbers.
Get the women in there. Yeah.
Well, there are women in the military.
More.
You want more women?
Yeah, conscript as many women as you do men.
Let's make it a feminist issue.
Give a gay woman a gun, she will solve so many problems.
Steve, thoughts on that? Not on that specifically, but on the story.
No, it makes sense for spending to increase. I mean, it's not just about staffing numbers. I mean, it's embarrassing when you hear of ships without aircraft to put on them and not enough people to staff these things. But the future of this tends to be moving towards technology. A lot of what was happening in Ukraine has been drone-based, whether it's been the water-based ones or the air-based ones. That's where spending is also needed. So, I think, I hate to say it, Grant Shapps, if that's his current name, is right.
But it makes
you... agreeing with Grant Shapps.
No, but it does make you wonder, though, if this was Putin's plan all along, was to shake up the EU, make independent countries spend more, make NATO spend more, and then destabilize people's communities more and more, because that's what it does.
I mean, does Putin have a particularly strong military at the moment? Didn't he have that presentation thing in the Red Square, and they basically had cardboard tanks?
I think it's I looked it up. I looked it up, and I think it's if not the strongest, in the top 4 strongest militaries in Europe.
But they've devoted so much to the Ukrainian wars, so maybe we don't need it. Anyway, let's move on to the Express. The front cover of Thursday's Express, Steve.
Migrant flight plan to Rwanda in good place. This is the funniest story.
Is the good place Rwanda? Is that what they're talking about?
Well, legally it's a good place.
Yes.
Because they've passed a bill saying that it is safe.
Yes.
And that's what they should maybe do with areas of London, and then you wouldn't worry about knife crime. All you've got to do is have a vote on it, apparently. You can just declare places.
Croydon rocks!
I wouldn't go that far, Scott. But Steve, to give them their due, I mean, the Rwandan government were very angry at the suggestion that Rwanda wasn't a safe place. They were pushing back on that.
They've got some high morals because they were threatening to pull out of the deal if the deal broke international laws, which is something we've not been particularly too fussed about. But before we move away from this story, we have to mention the plan that goes with it, Rwanda 2.0. Which is, yes, there's this plan to send people to Rwanda, and if you apply for asylum in the UK and it's not approved, they will pay you, there's a new plan, £3,000
ching,
to fly to Rwanda. So if you then come back again, this is brilliant. If you come back again quick enough, you get £3,000 then. This is a nice little nest egg builder.
It's a nice business round trip, too.
Yeah, it is such an embarrassment. But I'm telling you why they're doing it. Clearly, it's so that at some point in the future, they can say, well, we've sent this many people to Rwanda. As long as you don't look at the little asterisk and point out they were the volunteer ones who got paid £3,000 for it, they can make it look like less of a failing plan.
We could go to Rwanda and open a little comedy club with £3,000, couldn't we? A little comedy room.
I mean, why not? But Scott, is it not the case that this idea is dead in the water? I mean, it just hasn't worked.
It's gone already.
I mean, surely. I mean, at one point they were sort of floating the idea of using one of the sort of the islands in the Highlands of Scotland as a place. Why not do that? Why not just use Anglesey? I mean,
no one else is using it. The only thing is, he has been turned down by his party so many times with his Rwanda plan.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of poor Chita Rivera. What was her name? The woman who ran the country for 2.5 years.
Let's just go with that.
Anyway, it reminds me of her with the COVID thing, with all her plans and stuff, and the Brexit stuff. No, Brexit lady. God, how have I forgotten her name already? Dementia. Anyway, our Prime Minister during Brexit. Yeah.
Yes.
Mrs. Dementia.
You mean Theresa May?
I do, Theresa May.
Is that really who you
I thought Cheetah Rivera. I don't know. Cheetah Rivera, she's on my mind. But yes,
You're
Theresa
really
May.
confusing me with your hints.
It reminds me of...
you should have said the woman with the nice shoes.
Right, Cheetah May. It reminds me of Theresa Cheetah. It reminds me of her trying to pass her Brexit deal and being turned down like 3 times in a row. And she finally just left.
She left.
And I think he knows he's leaving. I think that's what the point is trying to make. He's putting this plan forward, knowing it'll be rejected, just to fill space in social media because he knows he's going.
Maybe he's being persistent, and maybe he feels like...
He's going to call a May election, he is. He can't wait till October. He won't last.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, he doesn't need to last that long. He's so close to the end of this. Yeah. He's not going to be replaced as leader unless something massive happens.
Well, fingers crossed.
Really? Oh, God.
The drama. Let's move on to the front cover of The Star. Let's not spend too much time on this one, Scott.
All right. There's a rich guy who wants to rebuild the Titanic. He says he can make a better ship.
Well, look, the whole Titanic 2 thing was always like a hack joke. It was always a punchline to sort of bad jokes. I heard some very bad comedians telling it. Titanic 2, isn't it tempting fate, Steve?
Well, you know when they made the Titanic, I can't remember the names of the other ones that were made at the same time.
It was the Olympic.
Yeah, and they famously didn't hit an iceberg and sink. So
Yes.
even out of those 3, the odds are in your favour that you won't sink.
Yeah, I just wouldn't call it that.
No,
I call it the iceberg just to cancel out. I read this story today about a chef that was on the Titanic that survived, even though he didn't get in a boat. He was so drunk that when he got in the water, he stayed warm. His vascular region constricted and kept him alive for 2 hours.
If only Leonardo DiCaprio had known. Then, you know, when that woman pushed him off the raft...
Yeah, it's silly him being a cokehead. He should drink.
I mean, that was a murder story, really. She killed him. Kate Winslet killed him.
Yeah, she'd had enough.
Yeah. OK, well, that's the end of part 1. We've been covering the front pages there, but we're going to delve in to the newspapers right after the break, and we're going to be talking about Christians being all Christian-y, about Muslims, and quantum computers. And I'm assuming Steve's got that story. We'll see you in 2.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Get this right, we all know by now, don't we, that so many NHS workers are abused by people that they're trying to help. We'll all agree that that is pretty damn disgraceful, but what do we do about it? Because now some London hospitals are looking at whether or not they should be able to ban people that do this for a year from those hospital facilities. Is that the way forward? Daniel, do you like this? No abuse, no excuse, that is the campaign?
There's no other choice for most people. It's either the NHS or nothing. And if you're going to take that monopolistic power, then you need, I think, you have responsibilities towards people. You can't cut them off. So there are ways in which, of course, you can bring criminal charges against them. If they committed a criminal offence, that's fine. They might even be locked up in jail. But what you can't do is cut off health services because you're the only supplier.
Well, yes, I think you can cut it off, and you should cut it off. London is very different from everywhere else, and it goes back to a conversation about immigration. The majority of nurses in London are either African or Filipino, and it harks back to their nature and their culture. When you're younger, your parents look after you. When you're older, you look after them. They don't go into homes. So there's a way that a threshold of tolerance they have that is above and beyond most people. So, because I found like when I was younger, most of the nurses were white. Now they work in hospitals in Ascot and Somerset. London is the war zone. I have seen horrific things happen to nurses, and they stay, they show up for work. There's a protection they are owed, beyond owed. And if you abuse something that's offered to you as a part of your citizenship, there should be a penalty for that. For the same reason,
you're obliged to use it. There's no offer involved in the NHS.
But there is an offer, because at the end of the day, like you figure out how to get money and go private. So just because you've created something that gives you... No, it's easy. If it's easy...
That's an impossible solution.
They've created something that's kind and easy and beneficial to all, indeed. But it's a good thing for all. Do not abuse it. That simple.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, and tonight's merry mirth makers are Steve N. Allen and Scott Capurro. And Steve, we're going to go to Thursday's Times first. It's a good thing they're not owned by a foreigner.
Yep, they go with ministers set to ban foreign states' ownership of UK newspapers. Let's set the scene. So this, they say it's likely to block the sale of the Daily Telegraph. So, you've got a guy who used to run CNN, he sets up an investment fund, he teams up with another investment fund that is privately owned by the Deputy Prime Minister and Vice President of the UAE. So it's key to remember it's a privately owned investment firm, because that comes back later. They want to buy the Telegraph and the Spectator, and everyone goes, well, you can't have foreign states owning our media. But that's the sticky wicket they've got you on, is that it's not state money. It's private money from someone who runs the state, or co-runs the state, I suppose. So, there's a good question there. Should you have someone with that much influence? No one's ever bought a newspaper to make money. You buy it for influence. But they're going to lose some money.
But the fear, I presume, is that these are despotic states and therefore corrupt states, and they will attempt to influence politics as a result. But then didn't Rupert Murdoch kind of do the same?
Well, that's exactly my point. That if the rule has to be, if you want to stop this happening, it can't be you ban state ownership. You have to ban foreign ownership, and then you've got to have a word with Murdoch. And as you say, the Times probably wouldn't like that.
No, probably not.
And everything's owned by everybody on social media. I mean, people are terrified of what's happening on TikTok, that the Chinese might try to influence us. But I watch cat videos, so I don't think I'm subject to that.
You don't really know about that.
It's weird. I mean, I think that we're all subject to all sorts of foreign influence all the time anyway.
Yeah, but is it particularly bad when it's like the the United Arab Emirates or somewhere like that, where it is dictatorial,
right.
And they will attempt to. But although we'd notice, wouldn't we, if you suddenly started having, propaganda sort of snuck into the Spectator? I think people would start to notice this.
If people were that quick to spot the influence of newspapers, it wouldn't be the case that one newspaper can effectively pick who's going to be Prime Minister.
Yes.
So they have that power. We don't always notice it unless it's blatant, and I think they're gifted at not.
Do you believe that, though? I mean, The Sun claimed that they won it, didn't they? The Sun won it. That was their headline. When it came to the Tories. But do you buy that?
Papers have been starting wars for the last 150 years. I do think it's true in the US.
You think they've got influence?
Yeah, I do. I think people, when they trust a publication, they really believe what they read on paper.
I will say about the Daily Mail, I think they've successfully made people think that judges are the enemy of the people and other groups. People sit around in a pub not giving two hoots about judges. We wouldn't have thought about this until the Daily Mail decides to frame people as the enemy of the people.
I just don't know. I have more faith in humanity than that. I think people have their own ideas about these things.
You're higher educated, though, too, so there's that.
Well, no, but there's nothing to do. I mean, I think, that's a good example. I think, like, during Brexit, people said that the media was influencing the way people vote. People were debating that for months and months. Everyone was debating it.
Debating the ins and outs, literally ins and outs of the EU.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was thinking that judges were the enemy of the people. That is it.
Well, but then there was a very good legal argument that we had an activist contingent within the judiciary attempting to thwart it, and I think that case was made quite clearly. I think maybe the language might be inflammatory, but I think the argument itself, I don't know, I think people are maybe smarter than...
You have faith in critical theory, and anyway you voted for Brexit, we should move away from this conversation, but I do think that, yes, I think journalism, these newspapers have a political stance. That's the purpose of them, I think.
Well, at least they're open about their political stance. Which is kind of...
Most of them are.
Yeah. OK, we're going to move on to Thursday Telegraph. A nice religious story for Scott. He'll like this one.
Why do I get the religious story?
Because you're so pious.
The Archbishop claims that Muslim communities are at risk over new extremist definitions. Bishop Justin Welby and Stephen Cottrell they have released a statement to Michael Gove as he prepares to unveil new extremism strategies.
So this is what Gove is trying to define extremism.
He is, and this in a joint statement, the most Reverend, just it was hard for me to say. I got it for
say Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah, that guy. He's labeling a multifaceted problem. And hateful extremism can vilify the wrong people, increase divisions within communities. He's basically asking Gove to be very, very cautious.
Yeah, but we haven't seen the definition yet, have we?
Yes, he's trying to preempt a strike.
OK. But, you know, it will depend on what it says. I mean, I think it's probably quite useful if we have a definition of what this stuff means.
Relatively subdued, too. Gove tends to be pretty calm about stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what he knows that we don't. Has Welby seen a draft version or something? What's this?
Well, you know, he's connected.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Connected. I mean, look, I suppose you could have presumed that archbishops might have stuck to talking about Christian issues rather than worrying about...
Are you joking? Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury is always getting involved with politics.
I think there might be a merger on the way. The fact that they're talking that much. And also, that paragraph you talked about where they're described as the Most Reverend Justin Welby and the Most Reverend Stephen Cotterill. Well, which one's the most? This is not how superlatives work.
One of them must be more reverend than the other.
Exactly, and there's only one way to find out. It's a fight.
It should be a fight.
It should be a fight. But
a mud wrestle, down to the ground.
Stripped to the waist on a ring of swords.
Exactly, I want to see it.
That's why you got this story.
Yeah. Exactly.
The definition, worryingly, some newspapers said it might talk about undermining the democratic principles of the UK. Well, we've all done it. We've sat here and said bad things about Rishi.
Yes.
Are we now extremists? This is one of those things where you do worry about a badly phrased law or definition will incorporate people that it shouldn't. And I don't trust this government because they weren't going to get the rules on protesting through, so they just rush it through without a parliamentary debate because of the Jubilee. You don't like the online harms?
No, I do not.
I don't like this government taking more freedoms away by their own definition.
I also don't like the strategy of redefining terms for political ends, and both sides do it. Let's be absolutely clear.
I think that these two men, whatever is the most honoured or revered or whatever, these two mostly reverend people, I think they just want Gove to honour, and what they say is honour and cherish the community of God and the community of religion. I think they don't want it. They don't want it denigrated in any way, and they're nervous about politics getting involved. That's what they're saying.
Well, maybe,
they're stepping in.
But there's also a reticence to acknowledge that there is a problem with Islamist extremism in the country. You know, a lot of politicians are not even saying the word. When Lindsay Hoyle, upended parliamentary protocol, he couldn't even use the I word. You know, and there's kind of like that kind of mealy-mouthed element to this isn't helpful either. Maybe if they get things defined clearly, we might be able to have an open conversation.
I think that's just been an attempt by Labour to have a definition that they could use against the Tories, because at the moment, if you are trying to accuse the Tories of just being racist, they get to play the look at our diverse cabinet that we've had.
And what about the anti-Semitism element within the ranks of the Labour Party?
To finish that point, though, about having Islamophobia as the way to attack them, if you get the definition of that the way you want it, you accuse the Tories of it and they can't come back.
Well, similarly, we've had endless debates about the definition of Islamophobia, which I think is a bit of a nonsense term anyway, and they've had a cross-party consultation over how we should define this term. And the trouble with that term is you end up with, the kind of nasty people who would, like, I don't know, throw bacon at a mosque or something stupid like that, are conflated with people who want to issue legitimate criticisms of Islam. As a belief system, it should be open to criticism, and that's a problem, isn't it? Again, it's wordplay rather than politics.
I think and people are concerned, like these two reverend people, are concerned about the potential violence that might go along with the definition. Because then you can point figures and say, well, that's them, that's how they are. See, they're defined in that way, and they're different, they're apart from us, instead of, again, a cherished community.
Fair enough. Scott, when you say those reverend people, it doesn't sound like you mean it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't...
The respect isn't authentic, I don't think.
It's hard for me. I just think that they're just people with opinions, really.
Yeah. OK, let's move on then to this story, which is The Independent now. And this is a story that might make you reconsider joining the Danish army. Who's got this?
Denmark wants to conscript more people for military service, including women. For the first time, Denmark's government wants to increase their numbers as the Danes get more and more fearful about their own safety.
Well, Danish women are pretty scrappy.
They are. And they're trying to match what other Scandinavian countries do. Norway conscripts women, has for quite a long time. Sweden does. Finland lets women volunteer for the military service, but doesn't conscript them. But the Swedish, again, we spoke about this earlier, the Swedish military is the most powerful Scandinavian military. And maybe the Danes have had it with the Swedes. They want that. They just want them off their bridge.
Denmark's going to invade Sweden?
Get off my bridge.
Wow.
They want the cheese.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, I don't know what they want, but I think what they want is their borders to be safe, although the Danes are safe, and they're very cautious about immigration.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what they're afraid of.
Interesting. Steve, what do you make of this one?
All for it. The idea of, because I'm a bloke, but I'm not Danish, so you're right, it's not even my issue. But I think it would stop people being so willing to think war's the solution if you might get called up as well. It's very much like in that bar situation where if you've got more of a high-maintenance girlfriend who might start fights knowing that it's you that gets punched. It really could level the playing field if you get involved.
I think this is true for politicians as well. I mean, as soon as you have conscription, they're sending their own kids off to fight, and maybe they won't go into war so recklessly.
They're saying that they want to rearm themselves, not to create war, but to stop war. They think it discourages people, like you say, not just locals, but foreigners from invading them, because they're thinking, well, if they're that powerful, we might get killed. It might not be good. I think Russia thought that Ukraine was going to be a one-day thing.
Yeah, no, they most certainly did. OK, we're going to move on and finish this section with The Telegraph. Unfortunately, Lewis wasn't on today, so we have to turn to our reserve scientific specialist.
Fair enough. Britain curbs quantum computer exports amid fears over foreign military use.
OK, you're going to have to explain this to me. I got lost at quantum.
All right, so quantum computers, you use things that can be in superpositions of states. Instead of doing normal processing, which is like a 1 or a 0 binary, you get these superpositions of state can be a 1, a 0, or in a mixture of both.
Yes.
And only when you observe it does it resolve to either a 1 or the 0.
OK, but I hope that made sense to someone.
No idea what he's talking about.
People make the sci-fi headlines make it seem like these computers are amazing. They are terrible at the moment. They're really slow in comparison to normal computers. They're great at specialised jobs, working out how proteins fold, or my favourite one is, the most common use for it is modelling quantum systems. So someone goes, oh, I wonder what a quantum system would do. I know, let's model it on this quantum system. It's not really what computers are about.
So what's the big deal with this? Why is this an issue?
It's more about the idea that they might have a military use, and at the moment they don't. But as they develop, if suddenly you find that you can use a quantum computer in some way that's useful for AI or something, then retrospectively it all becomes a bit more worrying that other people have it. The biggest worry is that they can use it to crack the encryption we've got. Like 128-bit encryption is pretty solid. But if quantum computers can crack that, it wouldn't be safe in the future, but people are already capturing data that is encrypted, so you can retrospectively crack it and have a read, which finally means we'll get something out of the COVID inquiry.
You know what? None of this is safe, Scott. I mean, I was talking to you earlier about this AI. I was told today that AI is going to be more intelligent than all human beings combined by 2028. That means they're going to kill us. Now, at what point do we say, look, let's just destroy the computers now while we can, and just have a crack at a future, a possible future?
I'm still hanging on the point that proteins fold.
Yeah, I know.
Are you? I'm not with that. I'm not getting that at all. Maybe I should be AI. I'm too stupid for this stuff.
What is it, protein origami? What do you do?
It's literally the trickiest thing, trying to work out how a protein is going to attach to another molecule. You need to know how it folds. Trying to do it on a normal computer takes years of processing power, but because you can use a quantum computer to do more of that processing, we'll be able to find out. Make new proteins.
This is all French. Guys. It's all French. Do proteins fold, or does a protein folds? A protein folds, or which is it?
Do you mean what? It folds? It doesn't collapse as a business.
So it's a singular thing that folds, a protein.
A protein folds.
Look, guys, we're never going to solve this. We don't understand the concept of proteins fold.
I'd rather be AI. Kill me right now, seriously.
AI, absolutely. OK, well, look, we're halfway through. We've still got a whole bunch of stories to anger and delight, including US versus TikTok, trans school guidance rumbling on, why you might be licking your partner, and many, many more. See you in a few minutes.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most of us will see some rain. It's going to be another very mild day, particularly across parts of England and Wales. Today, we've had this weather front straddling the country. It's been providing cloud and outbreaks of rain. Some very windy conditions across northern Scotland. They'll slowly ease through the night, as will the showers. But this zone of damp weather will persist, staying pretty soggy over North Wales, northwest England. The rain just creeping back across Northern Ireland and eventually into southern Scotland by dawn. Much of the south and east of England staying dry. Very mild here, 9 or 10 the low in towns and cities. Colder across Scotland, a touch of frost possible in the countryside here, but we should start with some sunshine. Still a few showers over the Northern Isles. Rain spreading quickly through the central belt. A wet morning for Northern Ireland. That rain slowly pushes northwards. A few showers over northern England, some heavy showers for Wales and southwest England through the middle of the day. A few getting further east, but much of eastern England, I suspect, will stay dry. And with some sunshine here, we could reach 17, maybe 18 Celsius. A very mild day here, but feeling colder with the wet weather across Scotland. Some snow over the hills. That's still around on Friday morning. but slowly it should start to pull away, and then we're left with bright spells and showers for many. Still quite breezy, and notice the winds coming down from the north across northern Scotland, so a real chill here with temperatures only 6 or 7 Celsius. Again, no further south, pretty mild for the time of year, 15 or 16 degrees.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's your first look at Thursday's newspapers. Let's get straight into it with the Times. Scott, it's time to go back to your MySpace account.
Oh, right. TikTok is about to be banned in the U.S., apparently. They voted on it, I think it was today or recently, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Bill.
Yes.
Because apparently this guy, Chip Roy, whose actual name is Eugene, Chip means he's probably...
I can see why he changed it.
He's probably a second Chip off the old block. That's where those nicknames
Oh, I see.
So Chip Roy, a Republican from Texas who voted against COVID funding. He said it was welfare, didn't want it. But anyway, that's his past. He said, we're in a Cold War with China.
Well, that's what I hear.
Are we?
But I think the issue
We're doing pretty well.
We're doing okay. I think the issue, Scott, is that, TikTok, the company that owns TikTok, which I think is called ByteDance or something.
Sure.
They are under a legal obligation in China to hand over all data to the Chinese government, should the Chinese government request it, right? So it's not as though the company is spying on us,
No.
But it could be the case that they have to.
Well, Nancy Pelosi, who I do trust more than Chip, just because that's her true name, she said during the Taiwanese election, TikTok did send some information to Taiwan about the Uyghurs in China that was untrue. And they've also sent other information to other countries during their election. So, but again, it's up to us to discern what's accurate and what's true. If you have a critical theory, you can tell that the Uyghurs are not enjoying their time in China, that they're being tortured.
Of course.
They're being kidnapped, they're being scandalously treated and murdered. So I think
this is not a government that I would trust.
Right, but do you trust Facebook during political elections?
No, I don't trust. Well,
there you go.
I don't trust any of them. I'm aware that this is a device that is spying on us,
it's watching you all the
and
time.
that to me is scary. But I still use it because, well,
I watch Gladys Knight and the Pips. I do not get my politics from TikTok. I get my dog licking videos. I like to watch people open their Christmas packages.
And again, this comes. Well, see, I'm less worried about influence. Like I say, I mean, you and I have very different ideas about this. I mean, I don't believe that Russian bots on Facebook can swing an election. I just don't. I don't think people are drones. But I do think that data can be harvested and passed on to people, nefarious actors, people we don't want to have. That. Am I wrong, Steve?
No, you're right. They would have the legal ability to request data from ByteDance, the Chinese government, and that's not what you want. So what you do is, well, they've done here. It's not a US ban. The headline is all about they're banning TikTok. They're passing a rule that means the company that owns TikTok has to be separated off from the Chinese part of ByteDance.
Well, that actually makes sense.
Yeah, but that won't happen. And they know that. That's what they're saying. They're saying we're making it look like a business ban.
Yeah.
Or not a ban, but a business request. We're asking you to change your business model. But of course, the Chinese government won't allow this, and the US government knows that.
Why wouldn't the Chinese government allow it and then still apply the same pressure that it would anyway? That's what I think would be the outcome.
Right,
of course,
maybe.
they'll slice off a piece of ByteDance and then they'll
do what they want anyway, right?
I think the big worry here is Trump's flipped, so he's now saying you shouldn't get rid of TikTok. He was trying to get rid of it before. Yeah. Biden's now saying you should get rid of it. He's just got a TikTok account. There was that video of him during the Super Bowl answering some questions.
Oh, really?
The big question
He's not going to do a dance.
No, well, if he'd never get up again, would he? The question was, what phone are they using? Because you're not allowed to have TikTok on government phones.
Oh, they've got burners.
And where would Biden get a burner? How's he going to know someone who's in with a drug scene?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't think. Mine boggles. OK, Thursday's Daily Mail now. Now, look, this is a genuinely disturbing news story about a primary school trend. Steve, what happened to conkers and Pokemon cards?
Yeah, well, oddly, Conker's banned for health and safety.
Yes.
Meanwhile, primary school children are filming themselves killing and torturing wild animals, including swans, deer, squirrels, and then sharing the videos on WhatsApp, which means you don't need TikTok to make our kids wrong.
No, I mean, the kids are wrong, and Rousseau was wrong. They are just evil little beasts, and they need to be civilised.
Although killing pigeons, kind of for it.
The big worry here is that actually torturing and killing animals is a well-known step one on the path to becoming a psychopath.
Serial killer,
That's
what I
hear.
So
Apparently,
give it like 20 years, you're going to be surrounded by them, and they'll have a youth advantage on us.
I knew this at school. I remember one kid murdering a spider with a hot glue gun, and I thought you're going to end up a serial killer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he did. I haven't checked in.
Yeah.
But
you might give that a call.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Ask your mum.
But they're using these catapults to attack the animals, and the pellets get stuck in there. It's truly gruesome.
It is just horrible. I mean, where are the parents? What's going on?
I know, but swans are evil. And maybe it's good for kids to learn how to kill a creature, because at some point during the whatever is happening in the future, in 2028, we'll have no cult, we'll have no community anymore. There'll be no business to supply food. We'll all be...
They're going to have to go hunting.
Right. And maybe they're preparing for the future.
Train them to fight warrior robots, because that's what the future holds.
But in the meantime, they got to keep their energy up. They got to kill and eat a fox.
Just to ruin this story, it goes on about banning catapults, but actually what they're saying is the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 lists weapons that you can't use to kill an animal. It should be included there, even though it's not. My favourite thing is WhatsApp says this material is against our terms of use. Well, that'll stop them. If you're just about to kill a swan, but
I think about the implements. I mean, kids little boys always used to have knives as one of their things, and they didn't go around killing swans, for God's sake. I mean, there is something going wrong.
You can scare a swan to death, though. I lived on a farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can scare them.
Can you?
Yeah,
but
you back them in a corner.
Swans can be pretty vicious. If it's self-defense, that's a different thing, right?
Yes, but they have very fast hearts. You can force them into a heart attack. And they're killing pheasants and rabbits. Maybe they're just hungry, the kids. Maybe they're not being fed properly at home. School meals are not good. We all know that.
Yeah, maybe it is more...
Feed them better in schools and they won't kill geese.
I just think children are evil. OK, the Mail next. Scott, as teaching unions can't seem to help their teachers teach facts. Is this right?
Teachers who refuse to use pupils' preferred pronouns are going to face legal challenges. It's in the Mail. And some teachers have said that they're not going to change the way they refer to students to the way they have in the last decade.
But the thing is that the government's putting through this trans guidance for schools, which is actually long overdue. Schools haven't known what they're doing.
Right.
How do you handle a child who says
there needs to be a rule?
There needs to be a rule. Teachers need to know, they're not psychotherapists. But the problem is here, they're claiming now, these teaching unions, that if you don't use the preferred pronoun of a child, you're breaking the law. That's wrong. That's actually wrong.
Right, but what they're actually asking them, the fundamental rule they're putting forward here, so you need to involve the parents in this decision.
Of course you do.
Which schools weren't always doing.
No, they weren't. I mean, I have a teacher friend who you know, actually, Scott, who said that what had happened was that he was told by the authorities, you've got to lie to the parents. So you've got to use a different name when you write school reports than what the name you use in the classroom.
Wow.
That's a safeguarding issue, isn't it?
Yeah. This story, though, the word could in the headline's doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's not that they will be sued, it's that they could face legal challenges, and that what the unions are doing is saying we need better guidance. This guidance is advisory rather than a legal issue. They need legally binding guidance because that's then your defence as to why you've done something when the parents try and sue.
You know what they should do, really, is just say you can't socially transition a child into school.
But that would solve still it. Possibly, but then the worry about the vexatious court claims would still be there. I think they're saying this would be the swifter defence. When you try and sue a teacher for not doing what your child says, you can shut it down. You already can shut it down. As you say, there's no legal obligation to call the child by their preferred pronouns.
Well, there can't be, because otherwise we wouldn't have free speech anymore.
Exactly. So there's a really interesting... a lot of this story is missing.
It's a really interesting quote, too, from the Department of Education spokesman who says, quote, I saw at the end, the expert view is clear that treating children as the opposite sex to what their sex is not a neutral act. at
No,
schools
it's not.
and treating
That's
it.
right.
And has the potential of significant psychological effects. And it's weird that this person from the Department of Education had to put that statement out for teachers to realise.
No, but they thought that they were just being kind and compassionate and going, what they're doing is actually endangering the child by further embedding this sense of gender dysphoria.
Are kids in such control in the classroom the teachers have just given over all power to them?
Unbelievable. Of course they
Seriously.
are. Yeah, of course they can, because you know,
they've got catapults.
They've got catapults, but they're also aware that kids can make any kind of false allegation against teachers, and that teacher is suspended immediately. It's a real weapon. The teachers' union has already said that the vast majority of these accusations are false.
So the teachers might just think, why play the game? Why battle this? I'll just go along with what the kid wants.
They might do. But then there's going to be teachers. The worry as well is schools not only have been going along with social transitioning and not telling the parents, they've also been allowing boys to go into girls' changing rooms and use girls' toilet facilities because there has been no guidance from the government. That's obviously a risk. That's a huge safeguarding risk. There's a case in Virginia at the moment of a boy in a skirt went into a girls' toilet and raped the girl, and the school tried to cover it up. And the parents are now suing the school board for $30 million. You don't want to open up that can of worms, do you? That's just a disaster. We need clear guidance, is what I'm saying. Anyway, on to the Express now. And
you don't have children.
I don't have children, no.
So we is just the royal we. Is that what you mean?
I'm always talking about the royal we.
Steve has kids.
Yeah. Steve has kids.
So you could say you need guidance.
Fine, thanks.
Let's move on to this next story now. What are we on? The Express. So this is about an iconic BBC show. What's this?
Iconic BBC show cuts 30 staff and $7 million from the budget after half the viewers switch off. It's losing its Newsnight, losing its investigative journalism strand. And let's just check this. News story is 4 months old.
Yes.
The Express has gone with this. Now, all that's happened is we found out Victoria Derbyshire is going to be hosting it.
Yes.
But they've gone with the 4-month-old headline, proving that we do need a better quality of news
you know
out
what?
there.
Because this is 4 months old, I think we need to just move on.
And they lost Emily Mathias. They lost some good people, obviously, went elsewhere. But that was a while ago. When I was seeing this, I thought, that's an old
strange?
story. Yeah.
OK, well, look, it's the final... Just one more section to go in tonight's headliners. And we're going to be talking about baked potatoes, why cheese is now offensive, and plunging. See you in a few minutes.
Oh.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
I've personally been very torn on whether Prince Harry should have full police protection when he's in the United Kingdom. On the one hand, why should taxpayers fork out for somebody that's left the country and the institution? He is no longer a working, serving royal. But I don't think it matters. He is one of the most famous men in the world, and whether he's a royal or not, he is an ambassador for this country. And he still does good. Charitable causes, the Invictus Games, and he is still a nice and charming guy with a heart. And whilst he has left the royal family and departed these shores, he was and remains the son of King Charles. That is a biological fact. Well, let's hope so. And it wasn't his choice to be born into royalty. It wasn't his choice to be the son of the king. And for that reason, I think he should have equal police protection to his brother William when he is in this country. He couldn't be a more high-profile figure, and unfortunately, like all the royals, Harry will be a target for some very bad people. I fear that if, God forbid, anything happened to him or his family, the authorities would have blood on their hands. So, it's not often that I back Prince Harry, but on this one, he has my support. Look what happened to his poor mum, killed in a Paris tunnel in the 1990s with an allegedly drunk chauffeur. A top royal security insider recently told me that Diana would still be with us today if she had had top royal protection at that time. So let's not make the same mistake twice. Prince Harry needs full protection and the best we've got. Yes, he might be a numpty, but he's our numpty.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camila, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tomy Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. We're going to kick things off with The Guardian. Steve is going to go all Gordon Ramsay.
How difficult is it to bake a potato? It's more of a Delia Smith.
Yeah, that was her drunk at the football ground.
Yeah, she did a book about how to cook an egg.
Oh, did she? Yeah. Yes, OK. Well, God love her.
But this is a fed-up head, hits out at school caterers. A letter has been sent out apologising to the parents for the completely unacceptable standard of food at Southampton secondary canteen. That's what... I mean, I've looked. The food looks bad.
Yes.
School dinners are meant to look bad.
School dinners are always bad,
Yeah, if you don't get those weird veiny things on the bacon, have you really had a school dinner?
Well, I think we've got an image of this particular baked potato. I mean, look, do you know what, though? Isn't it character building? You know, because we had terrible food at school, you know, and I thought... You know, but maybe that's made me who I am today.
Well, you've just
slightly ill and prone to a...
a bit inflamed.
Yeah.
If you've had 17 pints of lager, that looks great.
Well, exactly. So maybe that's what it is.
That food's like prostitution. In the daytime, a hooker, but at night, delicious.
Scott Capurro, you never shut it down, do you? Anyway, you're off the carbs anyway, aren't you? So
get out of here.
This wouldn't be...
No, the food's disgusting, and this is why kids are killing geese when they're done. It's why, seriously.
It explains an awful lot. All right, let's have a look at the Mail now. And is it offensive to say that Peter has jumped the shark?
A little bit. Peter is asking people, instead of saying cheese, because cheese is... I don't know, bad, because it's cow-made. Although it isn't now, everyone eats that vegan garbage that tastes like plastic on your burger. But anyway, don't say cheese.
What Peter R.
I'm sorry. Peter R.
The animal rights group.
People for the ethical treatment of animals.
The people for the ethical treatment of animals. Yeah. So this animal rights group, and now they're saying when you're getting a photo taken,
don't say cheese. They want you to say bees.
Bees.
Why say bees? Because bees are creatures too, and if you say bees, then people are going to kill them. Because bees scare people.
It's offensive to bees.
Right, or they want you to say nutritional yeast, but that makes me go, ugh.
Nutritional yeast?
Yeah, nutritional yeast, which makes me a bit sick. They have some other suggestions. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah.
Almond milk.
Okay.
Say almond milk and smile.
Form the right...
Okay, look, Steve, can I just ask this?
Yeah. Almond milk.
I always think... Peter are a huge organisation, right? But I always think they're trolling.
Yeah.
I mean, they put out this thing about don't assume the gender of a pigeon. They had a picture of a pigeon with they, them pronouns next to it. They are trolling. Come on, they're having a laugh. They are...
They want you to say repeated and forced impregnation.
Right.
That's what they want you... I'm reading. And they want you to say dehorning and tail docking. Woo!
Okay, I think they're...
For your photos.
I think they're trolling or they're clinically insane.
For your selfie.
To get the attention, aren't they?
Dehorning.
Now we're talking about Peter. We wouldn't have been talking about Peter. They think that cheese is offensive. I don't know what their beef is. Sorry, I'm just hamming it up.
Oh, Steve, you're on a roll.
Only thought bread.
What type of roll? A ham roll? Oh, awful. OK, we have to stop this now.
Oh,
let's move on to...
You could say Jesus instead of cheese.
You could say that, but then that's probably blasphemous. Anyway, good news in The Guardian for coral reefs, as long as they have a Spotify account.
Yes, playing thriving reefed sounds underwater could... Again, doing a lot of heavy lifting, that word. Save damaged corals, because the larvae are more likely to settle and then start to grow if they listen to it. I just would like to check what kind of eco-damage we're going to do by laying out lots of speakers everywhere. We're always told off about plastic in the ocean. Now we're dropping woofers and tweeters in. But apparently it creates the sound of a busy, thriving coral, and they think, oh, we'll settle here. Imagine how gutted they'll be when you turn the sound off.
Yes.
It's like when an estate agent has said, oh, it's a thriving area, and then you get mugged.
Yeah.
Do they have...
It's like moving to Milton Keynes, really.
But do they have brain power? Are they not anencephalous? Is this not...
Oh, very dare you.
No, but they're coral. They can't...
You're a speciesist.
I am being... Peter are going to be on the phone to me because I'm being speciesist.
But I suppose you don't need a brain to detect vibrations because, you know, they're not plants, they're animals.
Yes, I
they're reacting to vibration in the water, aren't they? That's how they find each other.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they say that the Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest living organism. You know, which is absolutely incredible.
Bit rubbish, though, isn't it?
I mean, it was.
Well, it was until a certain celebrity
until cruise
gained
ships.
some weight. What do you, Scott? What do you make of this? Because surely dropping, speakers into the water isn't that
we could stop dropping garbage and human feces in the water. That would help too.
That would probably help.
That's what's killing all the coral.
Yeah. Well, you are a militant environmentalist. Let's move on now to this one. This is the Star, and this is another AI story. Maybe finally a good use for AI.
Quality publication. The Star, Mexico's most dangerous drug cartel, using AI to expand criminal empire.
Good
and
for
I
them.
think, yeah, finally, it's about time. Took forever. According to Interpol, the CJNG and other organized crime groups are pulling off, quote, more sophisticated and professional fraud campaigns. And they're saying, someone calls you up, tries to sell you insurance on the phone or gets money from you, which Edson and I almost fell for recently, actually.
Yes.
Because we were rebooking a flight, and we were halfway through the call, and the guy yelled out this horribly homophobic thing at us at that point. It was so funny. We laughed for a couple of days. But yes.
But yes, AI. I mean, look, if AI is going to be as intelligent as they claim...
They've got little bots speaking to you, and they know everything about you already, right?
If they're going to be crooks, Steve, what's going to... I mean, I don't trust them anyway. But robots that are also gangsters, come on.
Don't worry about it. They're going to end humanity way before then.
But I'd rather they call me on the phone than sew my head to a tortoise. I'd rather they take bank money from me than cut my arms off with a machete when I'm in Mexico City.
It's the most dangerous drug cartel is now moving into fraud. So that's better than drugs, isn't it? So, win.
Yeah, it's better, I think.
OK. Have we got time
I think the war on drugs really quick.
I think we've got the Mail. Steve is going to... tell us about this one.
Proof that Iceman Wim Hof's hellish method of doing cold baths and cold treatments is good for you because it reduces inflammation. This story makes me like the sound of inflammation. I'm going to take a piece of that. But it's good for you because it doesn't study at the University of Warwick. It releases adrenaline.
Yes, I'm told this is good
for
you.
So do other things.
Yeah.
Why'd you have to get in a cold bath?
It's really good for your brain activity,
right?
too. It keeps you from getting
People
dementia.
do this when they swim in Hampstead Heath, in those, but apparently it's like torture.
Yeah.
You could use it as a torture thing.
Some people really like it. I mean, I swim. I wild swim in California, meaning I swim in the ocean, swim in wild bodies of water. It's very cold. I wear a wetsuit, but it's still freezing. But I swim with a woman who's my age, and she swims in a bikini.
And does
she
say
loves
it's good
it.
For her?
She loves it.
She swears by it?
She does. And swimmers of my age that swim that way do swear by it.
They say it's good for dementia and Alzheimer's. And
they swim all the way to Alcatraz and back.
When you're swimming, make the sound of a coral reef.
Just to help.
It would help.
Just to give back a little bit.
Give back something to the world.
I was attacked by a seal, though.
Well, on that bombshell, the show's nearly over. Let's have another quick look at Thursday's front pages. And so the Daily Mail is leading with Shaps backs spending 3% on our defence. The Telegraph has Gove to identify Muslim groups as extremists. The Guardian is leading with Abbott accuses Tories of playing race card as Hester row intensifies in the Express. Migrant flight plans to Rwanda in a good place. The Eye has Tory reliance on race row major donor revealed. And the Daily Star, they're building a new Titanic. That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much to my guests, Steve N. Allen and Scott Caporo. We, of course, are back tomorrow with headliners with Josh Howie in the hot seat, Nick Dixon and Jonathan Cogan. And if you're watching the 5am repeat of headliners right now, please do stay tuned because it's time for breakfast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most of us will see some rain. It's going to be another very mild day, particularly across parts of England and Wales. Today, we've had this weather front straddling the country. It's been providing cloud and outbreaks of rain. Some very windy conditions across northern Scotland. They'll slowly ease through the night, as will the showers. But this zone of damp weather will persist, staying pretty soggy over North Wales, northwest England. The rain just creeping back across Northern Ireland and eventually into southern Scotland by dawn. Much of the south and east of England staying dry, very mild here, 9 or 10 the low in towns and cities. Colder across Scotland, a touch of frost possible in the countryside here, but we should start with some sunshine. Still a few showers over the Northern Isles. Rain spreading quickly through the central belt. A wet morning for Northern Ireland. That rain slowly pushes northwards. A few showers over northern England, some heavy showers for Wales and southwest England through the middle of the day. A few getting further east, but much of eastern England, I suspect, will stay dry. And with some sunshine here, we could reach 17, maybe 18 Celsius. A very mild day here, but feeling colder with the wet weather across Scotland. Some snow over the hills. That's still around on Friday morning. but slowly it should start to pull away, and then we're left with bright spells and showers for many. Still quite breezy, and notice the winds coming down from the north across northern Scotland, so a real chill here with temperatures only 6 or 7 Celsius. Again, no further south, pretty mild for the time of year, 15 or 16 degrees.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be a winner?
You've won £18,000.
Oh, flipping heck. I don't know what to say.
Enter our massive spring giveaway with 3 big seasonal prizes to be won. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finance